I'm at Meltdown Comics, the beating heart of all nerddom in Los Angeles, and today I want to talk to you about my favorite comic book movies. My name is Devin Faraci, and this is Badass Digest. So here, in no particular order whatsoever, are my 10 favorite comic book movies of all time. The 1972 Amicus Tales from the Crypt anthology movie. This is a movie that I love a lot because I think it really gets the spirit of the original EC comics. It has some terrific segments, even though not every single story actually comes from the Tales from the Crypt comic. I mean, if we're being really pedantic, there's stuff from like Vault of Horror and whatever. There's some amazing business in here, including an incredible adaptation of the Monkey's Paw, or a Monkey's Paw inspired story that has affected me in my entire life. This is a great movie because it has good old-fashioned rotting corpse zombies, the kind that any kid who grew up on EC Comics knows and loves. The Avengers is probably the best superhero movie of all time because I think it really captures the energy and excitement, soap opera fun that comes from reading the very best superhero comics. Also, even though the movie has sort of got problems in the beginning, it ramps up to such an incredible third act, such a delightful, exciting, fun, big finale that it's impossible not to watch the movie whenever it's on. I've actually sat down and watched this movie like 6 or 7 times already in the last year on Blu-ray, and I suspect I'm going to be watching it probably 10 or 15 more before I'm all done. Not a lot of people know that Takashi Miike's ICHI The Killer is actually based on a manga, and it's one of the sickest, craziest movies of all time. The opening credits are written in semen. It has this incredible central character who is this nerd who wants to be a hero and runs around killing people with his razor boots. It is totally over the top, totally gonzo, and it's a movie that I love. I'm on record as not being one of the biggest fans of Christopher Nolan's Batman movies, but I will say this, The Dark Knight deserves a spot on this list because this is a movie where he took something that he wasn't terribly interested in, the superhero business, and twisted it into something that he did care about, a crime movie. He made a really good crime movie using these characters that he has very little respect for, to be very honest, and it actually works. There's problems at the end. The movie kind of peters out into a secondary Two-Face movie that didn't need to exist, but the crime stuff, the heat business that's right at the beginning and the middle is so good, and that Joker is the ultimate version of the Joker that it has to be on this list. So I think The Avengers probably captures the reading of superhero comics the best, but my favorite superhero movie of all time is Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 2. I think that nobody got Spider-Man the way that Sam Raimi did, and in Spider-Man 2 he really nails it. His version of Peter Parker is perfect. The stuff that he has with Dr. Octopus is incredible. There's some really amazing Sam Raimi moments in this movie, especially the scene where Doc Ock first gets his tentacles and wakes up. It's this great noir nightmare moment. I love it. Scott Pilgrim vs. the World is an incredible movie. I think the reason why it works so well because it captures the feeling of Brian Lee O'Malley's comics so well as capturing the feeling of playing video games. See, I have a problem with Ang Lee's Hulk movie because he gets a little too caught up in the mechanics of reading a comic book. It's about panels and pages turning and stuff like that. Edgar Wright really understands that it isn't about the mechanics of reading a Scott Pilgrim comic, it's about the feeling of reading a Scott Pilgrim comic. It's this rush of energy and excitement and fun that is absolutely wildly captured. The other great thing about it is that because they started making the movie while the comic was still going on, the movie and the comic have totally different endings. So it's kind of a neat alternate reality version of Scott Pilgrim. How do you adapt a comic book that's mostly autobiography? Well, you bring in the actual people who were involved in it. American Splendor, which is an adaptation of Harvey Picar's black and white indie comics, really captures the crotchety, kind of antisocial flavor of the best Picar stuff, and it has Picar himself showing up to add all kinds of additional realism. Fidelity isn't always what you're going for in an adaptation, but if you're going to go for fidelity, you can't do any better than 300. Zack Snyder really took the frames from Frank Miller's crazy right-wing propaganda and made it come alive on a movie screen. It was an incredible transformation from the artwork into something that was really we had never seen before on screen. It's the kind of movie that makes you kind of want to stand up and cheer for fascism, which is a job well done, Zack. There are a few comic book movies that capture the spirit of the original source material just as perfectly as Ghost World. Even though Ghost World isn't exactly a real one-to-one adaptation, the feeling that you get from the original comics shines through perfectly, and I think a lot of that comes from the casting. You know, as somebody who has grown up with really unusual and horrifying interests, Steve Buscemi's character speaks to me in such a big way in this. I know it's because I'm not a girl, but the entire thing is just such a wonderful slice of life of a certain kind of a outcast weirdo thing that doesn't get shown in the movies very often, that really, until then, was just stuck in the pages of black and white indie comics that were read by a few thousand people. It's to me, probably the most exciting movie on this list and shows that what a comic book movie can be. Probably the best movie on this list, cinematically speaking, is Park Chan-wook's Oldboy. It's a masterpiece. It's an adaptation of a manga that is as twisty and turny as the film itself, but Park Chan-wook's vision is very specific and very different, and his story of revenge and the way that revenge destroys us in unexpected ways is incredible. Spike Lee is remaking Oldboy right now, and I don't really know what the point is, because here's the thing, this is a perfect movie and they got it right the first time. What are your favorite comic book movies? I've listed my favorite 10. I'm sure you have some real different ones. I didn't list Superman. No list of comic book movie adaptations is complete without Richard Donner's Superman. This is the movie that in a lot of ways really changed the landscape. Comic books have always been sort of the redheaded stepchild of pop culture, not taken seriously. And Donner, with his movie, really did things in a very different way. That first half of that movie is perfect. This American pastoral version of Superman growing up, this idea of Clark Kent as a character as important, if not more important than Superman. I think it kind of goes off the rails at the end, but what Donner did in that movie is incredible. And also, I think the important thing to note is that Superman does not turn the Earth backwards. Everybody thinks that he does. He actually goes against the rotation of the Earth, past the speed of light. He goes back in time, and we see the Earth spinning backwards as a representation of time going backwards for him. The rest of the Earth is not actually going backwards. This is the biggest misunderstanding about Superman, and I'm glad that I'm here to clear it up for everybody. Well, those are my favorite comic book movies of all time. What are yours? I'm sure yours are pretty different. Let me know below. Are you a bigger fan of the Nolan Batman movies? Do you stand up for the Tim Burton movies? Are there other, History of Violence, Barbarella? I didn't list any of these on my top 10. Maybe these are your favorites. Let me know. Subscribe so you don't miss a single episode. Share it with all your friends, and be back here again next week. I'll be doing something totally different, just as badass. My name is Devin Faraci, and this is Badass Digest.
Get your film fix. Subscribe to Cinefix.